when teams repeat in seasons, it's hard to do. I mean, baseball hasn't had a back-to-back champion since the Yankees in the 90s. That's hard to do. I mean, only one team in MLB history has won the World Series one year and then got to the final in the next year and, failed. That was the Philadelphia Phillies winning the 2008 championship and then losing the 2009 final to the Yankees. And then you got yourself with hockey. Tampa Bay was going for the three-peat. Like many teams had a chance for a three-peat since 1984 and failed to make the final, but Tampa at least made the final and fell in the three-peat spot to Colorado. The Kansas City Chiefs have failed to three-peat in a sense, especially against the Philadelphia Eagles in this year's Super Bowl. But let's talk about basketball and how, a team wanted to three-peat and all that. It wasn't anything to do with the Golden State Warriors or the Chicago Bulls. It has to do with a team that was bad as it wanted it to be. And we're talking about the Detroit Pistons, and we're talking about the 1991 Pistons and what could have been a three-peat. We're playing basketball Sims. We're playing basketball Sims. He's playing What If NBA. Cutter's doing What If NBA. Yeah. Oh, all the teams around the world got to know that the Raptors are number one. But what about the Bulls, Wizards, and Pistons? They all have great what ifs, stories about old teams like the Kansas City Kings and maybe even the Minneapolis Lakers. But we all know we're going to do some basketball. He's doing basketball. He's doing basketball. What ifs? Cutter's doing what if NBA. So what if NBA? So let's talk about the Detroit Pistons. Detroit had some decent times and all that, but the Pistons franchise never started off life as Detroit. They were the Fort Wayne Pistons in the NBA in 1948. So Fort Wayne, Indiana had an NBA team back when small towns would rule the NBA and they were not thinking about big cities and all that. Anyway, a lot of people said that the Fort Wayne Pistons looked decent. One problem, though, in 1955, when they got to the NBA Finals, they actually ended up having to bulk and move the team to other places because Fort Wayne was hosting a massive bowling tournament in their basketball arena. A lot of people actually said that there was intentional losing to Syracuse, giving Syracuse the 1955 NBA Finals. So that was kind of awkward. Yeah, in Fort Wayne, they had a couple of chances to make the finals, but failed miserably. And then they decided, well, the small size, they had to move away. So Detroit settled on the Pistons, and it worked out quite well for them. The Pistons were a decent team and all that. And Detroit got a sports team. I mean, they had the Red Wings in hockey, so why not a basketball team? So the Pistons went to Detroit, and it worked out. The name worked because, Detroit was the automotive sector. But Detroit had to deal with teams like New York, Philadelphia, and even Boston for fan stuff and also for, making sure that they get to the NBA Finals. The Pistons were an also ran. Dave Bing did well for the Pistons in the 70s, but they just couldn't get over the hump. In the 80s, they looked okay, but in 1988, they shocked the world by doing well and getting to the NBA Finals against the LA Lakers. Sure, they lost in Game 7, but Isaiah Thomas had a painful Game 6 in which he got hurt, but then he finished the job and got the Pistons to Game 7, which they lost. But in 1989, they would learn the lesson and do better, and they got to the NBA Finals and swept the LA Lakers, sending Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to retirement via a sweep. 1990, they got to their second straight NBA Finals against Portland this time and it took a Game 5 shot by Finney the Microwave Johnson to give Detroit the win. The Pistons were looking sharp for 91. Of course, they didn't make it. I'll talk about that season later. But anyway, the Pistons decided, well, they had the bad boy image, but the Bulls shattered that. And Detroit were just basically also rans. They got Grant Hill in the draft, and they changed their uniforms to a 3D Piston stuff with the piston head. That was kind of cool. Detroit would struggle, but then in the early 2000s, they went with their brand of basketball, like you would see in the late 80s, and they got to the 2004 NBA Finals where they were supposed to get their asses handed to them by the LA Lakers. But the Lakers ended up winning and losing it in 6 games. So the Pistons with Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace, Jerry Stackhouse, I think, was on that team. Yeah, Detroit. They had some great players. Unfortunately, Detroit will also be remembered for something in late 2004 in a conference finals rematch with the Indiana Pacers in the Palos at Auburn Hills. The Pistons were getting their asses handed to them, but then Ben Wallace got mad at a foul by Ron Artest and started a fight. Unfortunately, that was, of course, the malice of the Palace. But what people forget was that Ron Artest, after his shoving with Ben Wallace, decided to cool off by laying down the scoring table, which he was prone to do. And it actually worked out. Unfortunately, a stupid fan decided to throw a drink at Artest, and he ran into the stands, and then that caused fans and players to get involved. It would actually decimate the Pacers just as much as the Pistons. Ron Artest was out for the rest of the season because of suspension. Jermaine O'Neal got double digits. Steven Jackson got double digit games. So practically, that ruined the Pacers and should have ruined the Pistons season, but it didn't. Detroit got to the finals, got taken out by San Antonio and Robert Horry. The Pistons would continue life in the 2000s. They had Ben, they had Sheed, they had a good defense and all that. But defense can only take you so far. And the Pistons have been crumbling ever since the past decade. But with Cade Cunningham putting on a show, the Pistons did make the 2025 playoffs. Sure, they lost in the first round, but at least they made the playoffs for the first time in like a decade. So anyway, let's take a look at the 1991 Pistons. So the 1990-91 Detroit Pistons was their 43rd season in the NBA and 34th in Detroit because they spent the first 9 in lovely Fort Wayne. The Pistons were the 3-time defending conference champions and the 2-time defending NBA champions. They actually started off 13-2. They had a rough December, but then they were still looking pretty good. They ended up with 50 wins. Unfortunately, the Chicago Bulls put up 61 to win the division. Joe Dumars looked good. Isaiah Thomas was still around. Mark Geyer coming off the bench looked good. Dennis Rodman, when he was in the team, looked good. Bill Laimbeer and John Sally would help out. Thomas and Dumars got to the All-Star game. They were the 3 seed in the East. Well, they were the third best team in the East. So they ended up facing the Atlanta Hawks. Fortunately, though, they did take down the Hawks in the 5th and deciding game. And then they played Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics. They're down 2-1, but won the next 3. They got to the Eastern Finals for the 5th straight year, and they would be taking on the Bulls. But the Bulls learned from the previous season about how Detroit was, and that it basically wanted to make Detroit pay and make them, lose their crap, if you will. The Bulls would beat the Lakers in the playoffs with their first NBA championship. Unfortunately, though, when the Pistons got taken out in Game 4 to the Bulls, many of the players on the Pistons walked off the court without congratulating their opponents and all that. It was basically a sign of disrespect by the outgoing champions. And practically, that was what it was. Soon they lost some players. Edwards and Hastings went, and Finney the Microwave Johnson went to San Antonio. Their only pick in the 1990 NBA draft was Lance Blanks from Texas. They had William Bedford from Memphis, Bedford Tools. Margaret Geyer, who the Pistons got from Dallas in exchange for Adrian Dantley. Joe Dumars from McNeese State, pretty good player. James Edwards, the tall 7-footer from Washington. Scott Hastings from Arkansas. Sweet. I think I did I think I talked about him in the '88 Hawks. Gerald Henderson, senior, not junior. Vinnie Johnson to Baylor. Bill Lambier to Notre Dame from Notre Dame. Dennis Rodman was still around. Tree Rollins. Yeah, the '88 Hawks. And John Spider Sally and Isaiah Thomas. So the Pistons won 50 games, were behind the Bulls and Celtics. Milwaukee, Philly, Atlanta, Indy, and New York made up the rest. So in the first round, they took on the Hawks and were up 2-1. Lost game 4 in Atlanta, had to go back home. That attendance can't be right. 9,000 saw game 4. The Omni Coliseum, I think, was like a 16,000. Wow, so many seats. In the conference semis against the Celtics, they were down 2-1. The Celtics looked pretty good for themselves. But they won the next 3, including winning overtime. And in the conference finals against the Bulls, nothing. Nothing. So, yeah, they had to try to do something. Oh, that Dennis Rodman was named Defensive Player of the Year, so that's good. So let's take a look and see what would happen if the '91 Pistons actually did beat the Bulls and go for a three-peat against the Lakers. So it is the Pistons and Lakers going toe to toe with each other. The '91 Pistons, '91 Lakers. Pistons going for a three-peat. Lakers have home ice. I mean, home ice. Home court because they won more games. So these were the starting lineups, if you will. Game 1 sees the Pistons go to LA, use the fourth quarter, and Isaiah had 20 points, 11 assists. Isaiah did his job. Dumars and Aguirre both got 20 points too. Aguirre did his job. Jaron Henderson, 13 minutes. John Long, 11 minutes. Bedford, 11 minutes. Fitting the microwave only got 3 minutes. Lakers with James Worthy still around, 22 points. Magic was still around. Byron Scott, Sam Perkins, and Flatty Divac. Terry Teagle off the bench. AC Green, no for his chastity and his NBA consecutive game streak. Michael Thompson, former Blazer. Larry Drew, future NBA head coach. And Tony Smith. Game 2 sees the Pistons blow up in LA as Magic, 17 points, 16 assists, proving he can be good with the assists too. Isaiah did have a double-double. Rodman, only 2 points by 22 rebounds. They used the whole bench, if you will. The Lakers, 27 from Worthy, 13 points by Terry Teagle. Eldon Campbell, who soon would be fine for the Lakers. Irving Thomas and Tony Brown would be coming in off the bench. Lakers won, Pistons won. Game 3 sees the Pistons lose as Worthy put up 27 games. Big game James, as they called them, with Magic and Byron also getting 20 points. 12 points from Larry Drew off the bench in 12 minutes. 25 from McGuire in just 29 minutes. Bedford got 10 points off the bench. Scott Hastings. Game 4 would see the Lakers go nuts as Byron Scott this time went through. And the Pistons are now one loss away from being eliminated. The Lakers would have taken care of business. 28 points by Byron Scott. Magic only 11 points, but he did have 10 assists and 10 rebounds. Why was he not player of the game? He had a triple-double. Green and Teagle with double digits off the bench. The Pistons. 15 from Isaiah and 10 from John. John Long, number 1. One more game. And it would be the Lakers taking care of the Pistons in game 5, winning the game and putting the Pistons out. So the Lakers would have won the '91 title and Detroit's three-peat stuff would be taken out. It would be full circle. I mean, the Pistons beat the Lakers to start this drive for a three-peat in 1989, and then the Lakers 2 years later would get them back. Every starter for the Lakers got double digits. Well, Magic, 16 points, 13 rebounds, 13 assists. Yeah, there's a triple-double. 19 from Isaiah, 10 from John Long. The Bad Boys would have been hit hard by the Lakers. Magic would have gotten a title, and maybe he would have stayed retired after the HIV thing because, he wanted to retire on top. But them's fighting words. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.